Aaron, was the first day of practice like?
Well, it's good. Good to be out here with the guys. Still learning the offense, but good to be in a jersey and cleats again.
How long will it take you to get acclimated, you think, with the offense?
I mean, those are two different things. The offense, it's a lot of the similar terms from the Shanahan offense, so I got a lot of stuff already booked. There's a couple new words and different things formationally, but I have it figured out, in a couple weeks probably.
Aaron, you visited here over 70 days ago. What made now the right
70?
time? 70, yeah. It's been a little bit. What made now the right time to sign a deal and be here?
I was dealing with a lot of things in my personal life, and some things improved a little bit where I felt like I could fully be all in here with the guys. I had a great conversation with Mike throughout the entire process, and Omar. But it's good to get that done and get behind us.
Aaron, why was the Steelers the right fit for you?
I think it starts with Mike Tomlin. I mean, I've been a fan of his for a long time. There's a few iconic franchises in the NFL. I played for one of them for 18 years. This is another one of those. There's something special about, obviously, this area. So many great quarterbacks are from Pittsburgh. I feel like Pittsburgh has been a part of my career from the beginning. Playing for Mike McCarthy for 13 years, having Tommy Clements, depending on how old you are, as my quarterback coach forever, Dom Capers, Kevin Green, Darren Perry, Ben McAdoo, Frank Signetti, Luke Getsy. I don't want to forget anybody, but a lot of Yinzers in my life.
Aaron Rodgers finally signed his deal. Not a surprise that he's going to Pittsburgh, but what are the expectations? Because I'll just say this. I went back and looked because everyone is hoping, fingers crossed, hope isn't a plan, but they're hoping that you get a version of Aaron Rodgers that's similar to what Tom Brady brought to Tampa Bay when they won that Super Bowl in 2021. And I went back and looked, and over the second half of last season, week 10 to week 18, Russ Wilson, and the Steelers lost 5 games towards the end of that season. Russ Wilson, when he started for the Steelers, and what Aaron Rodgers did for the Jets over those final 9 games or so, literally identical. Same completion percentage, same average yards down the field and air yards, touchdowns, interception ratio was very similar. So is this a huge upgrade over what Russ brought Pittsburgh last year?
I'm not going to say a huge upgrade, but again, regardless of how you see it and what you think about him, he will be a Hall of Famer. First ballot Hall of Famer at that, and he's one of the most talented quarterbacks to come through. I think, for me, the big part that I want to see is how is he going to acclimate to a new offense that he doesn't have any history with, right? So he chooses the Jets because Nathaniel Hackett is there. And they have a good working relationship, and he has input and a say. Well, he's never worked with Arthur Smith before. And what is that going to be like working in an offense? And Arthur has his offense and his offensive system. And is he going to give, Aaron Rodgers some autonomy to have a say? Now, again, all quarterback coaches, all offensive coordinators allows the quarterback to give you input on the first 15 and certain things that they like or dislike about the game plan. But as we've seen, whether it was Green Bay or whether it was with the Jets, like Aaron Rodgers had a big say-so in what they were going to do. And I think that was some of the initial headbutt, with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers when they first got there together.
Right. And Matt LaFleur has a track record of being pretty successful in terms of dialing up plays, both before he got to Green Bay and now after Aaron Rodgers has left. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because I think Arthur Smith a little bit, and, he's the OC for my Pittsburgh Steelers. But I want to go back to Nick Haley, who, the OC in Tennessee. And I mentioned that because you said he's, as a young OC, he understands what it means to have a young quarterback and getting input there. When you have 2 grizzled old-timers, in the sense of Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers, could there be an opportunity for friction pretty early on if one of these guys doesn't want to give?
Yeah, it could. And then you think about with Arthur's also been a head coach, so that's a whole different dynamic and a whole different, aspect of leadership. Now, speaking out of both sides of my mouth, that could also help Arthur in terms of understanding how to manage the roster, having had done that before in different personalities. So that could help. But then again, Aaron Rodgers is in his 40s. He's used to doing things a certain way. And you just wonder if Arthur Smith is going to be willing to put in some things that are, Aaron's used to doing in the offense and things that he likes to do. So we'll see how it works out. I think in the grand scheme of things, you still have, Mike Tomlin there to kind of manage the overarching, piece of it. And he's done it before and he's had big personalities. I'm sure it wasn't easy managing Big Ben earlier on, but they somehow made it work. So we'll see how this whole thing shapes out with all those guys there in Pittsburgh.
Right. And I think whatever happens, whether they win the Super Bowl or they win one game, they're going to be in the market for a quarterback. And that's certainly something we'll be addressing in the coming weeks and months as we do the summer scouting. All right, let's stay in Pittsburgh and let's talk about TJ Watt, because he's not at minicamp and, he wants a new deal and he's going to get a new deal. And the thing that they keep coming back to, and I think the Steelers will probably take care of TJ Watt, that's not the real concern, but the ancillary storyline for me, Rand, is that as the Cowboys, at least from the outside looking in, continue to drag their feet, the price of Micah Parsons just keep going up, because I would imagine TJ's going to get done before Micah, and that's going to cost the Cowboys a few extra $1 million on the back end. But in terms of TJ Watt, who's 30 years old, still elite, one of the best players in the NFL, not just pass rushers, are we paying him $35 to $40 million a year?
You better. Because if you don't, someone else will. Right, just for that reason. And I like what you just said. Not only is he one of the best pass rushers, but he's one of the best players, in our league as well. And as you see on the graphic, since 2017, all those guys that are beneath him, they're all in that 30 number. I think Daniel Hunter's close to it, but all those guys got to that 30 number, so why not him? He's such a key component of this defense and of this team and what it means to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So it's really in the part that you hit about Michael Parsons and him both wanting a deal at the same time, it's really a game of chicken for both of those organizations, both of these players and the people that represent them. So it's a game of chicken to see who's going to blink first. And I can almost guarantee you whichever one signs first, the other is going to probably beat them by 0.1, $100,000 to be the highest paid player. I remember a time when we were in San Francisco and Trent Williams was looking for a new deal. And his deal, I think at the time, Eric Bakhtiari was the highest paid offensive lineman in the league. And I think Trent's deal beat it by like 10,000. It was such a ridiculously low number that Bakhtiari tweeted him that he was petty for even having that deal done. So it's going to happen again here with Michael Parsons and TJ Watt.
If you're Michael Parsons' agent, for example, you may not be in a hurry, right? You might be willing to just sort of slow play this to see how TJ Watt, his deal unfolds, because it'll probably get done at least by training camp, and then you're making your client a few extra bucks. Does that sound reasonable?
Of course it sounds reasonable. And again, Michael Parsons is younger. So, it gives you even more leverage in the negotiation, because Pittsburgh is negotiating with a 30-year-old, and this is his third deal. And this is just Micah's deal coming off of his rookie year. So it gives you more leverage if you're Michael Parsons and his representation to just sit tight. You got time on your side, and we'll see what happens.